Hey everyone, good morning and welcome to Tuesday Tea. It is a beautiful Tuesday. We had actually a great weekend of warm weather here in Kelowna. It's a little bit cooler the last couple days, but lovely day for a tea, which I have here. This Tuesday Tea, we're looking at personal branding tips for sales professionals in 2021. And I get it, we're already a quarter into the year. So I really debated if this was the kind of blog post I wanted to do. But at the same time, the end of March signals a full year that I've had to make a pivot from the industry that I came from, which was the meetings and events industry. So I've had a year, I guess, of observations. And so that's why I was comfortable doing this post at the end of Q1 about 2021 and personal branding tips. And here's the thing, some things obviously have not changed at all, but the things that I'm talking about today are things that have changed. And so while the blog post and the video do dive into these 7 considerations, today I want to look at them a little bit deeper and more importantly, answer your questions or have that dialogue with you. So I'm hopeful that you will show up into the chat, drop your questions into the chat, and of course, add some dialogue as we go through these 7 considerations. So without further ado, let's look at the 7 considerations that I feel we should be addressing as we build our personal brands here in 2021. The first one is the belief that we should have and own our own personal brand. And here's what's different between last year and this one. On this one is that with all of the transitions, especially for people who have had to leave their place of employment or find new employment, now is the time to start creating a personal brand. It may not have been something that you considered in the past, but as so many people are going through this employment transition, I think it's more important than ever to have a brand and have a brand that's separate from your organization. Now, the 2 brands can obviously be aligned. Hopefully, you're working for an organization that shares the same values, shares the same beliefs, shares the same drive that you have. But having a personal brand not only is going to attract business to you as a salesperson, but in turn, of course, your organization is going to benefit. So believing that you can own and develop your own personal brand, especially as you go through any employment transition, is key for your success as you head into 2021. So I would love to know if you are in an employment transition right now, be it you're looking for employment or you just got new employment, if personal brand has been playing in your mind as you've been going through this journey. Number 2 is to know yourself. And what 2020 did for a number of us was give us that great pause, right? We all called it the great pause of 2020, where we had no choice but to step back from our chaotic lives. We had no choice but to stop driving kids to sports and stop going to all of the things that we had planned for ourselves as well. We had no choice but to kind of rest in our homes and in our communities and kind of wait things out. And that great pause did give us opportunity to learn more about ourselves, more about our family dynamics, that's for sure. So that great pause, I'm hoping we took advantage of that pause and came out the other side knowing more about what's important to us. I know I certainly did. Spending time with my family, in particular my husband. We both work from home, but can go days without seeing each other because we're so busy with our work. But that great pause where we were able to get into the garden together a lot more often, that was the knowing of thyself for me, and I guess reordering my priorities, how important my family was to me, how important my marriage relationship was to me. So knowing yourself and determining what are those things that drive you. What is your idea of success? What is your idea of a personal brand and the things that you want to amplify? We really had opportunity to kind of take a step back. I can tell you we've just gone into another round of restrictions here in British Columbia, Canada. So I think there's another pause here coming as we're no longer doing in-room dining. And so now we're kind of relegated to our homes and communities again. So we're kind of in a mini pause right now, which for some could be a really great, again, opportunity to kind of take a step back, take some time to reevaluate what it is that drives you, what you're passionate about, and getting to know yourself better. So that's consideration number 2. Number 3 is critical when creating a personal brand because of the uptick on social media, because of what's happened, is being consistent with your time and talent. And here's what I mean by that. When the pandemic hit last year and we all went through this year, the only way that we could interact with each other and show up with each other was predominantly through social media. And then, of course, through these Zoom meetings and phone calls, et cetera. But social media sure saw an uptick. In particular, you see Clubhouse now for Apple users, a great uptick in Clubhouse. LinkedIn had a massive uptick through 2020. And when you show up consistently with your time and your talent, regardless of your platform, that's what's going to help develop your brand. So because we were all online so much more than I think we were before, giving of your time and talent and the consistency in your scheduling, I think, is more important now than ever. This was one of the considerations that you needed to have before 2020, but it's more prevalent now here in 2021. That is for sure. Here is the biggest consideration, in my opinion, the biggest consideration and the biggest learning curve for all of us when developing our personal brands in 2021, and that is mastering the virtual. We've never been on video more so than we have in this past year. And for some of us, that was a blessing. Some of us, that was an absolute curse. Virtual is not comfortable. It's not comfortable for a lot of people. It takes a long time to get comfortable with virtual. But given where we are, this is one of the skills that we need to master in order to amplify our brand and create connections with our clients, our prospects, our colleagues, our friends, our collaborators, whatever that looks like. So mastering the virtual, it's almost a no-brainer, but at the same time, if you haven't taken the time to learn how to capitalize on the virtual platforms, this is the year to do so. And number 5, which is similar to number 4, is of course mastering social media. I've been on social media for a long time. I think Twitter was my first social media platform. I was one of the early adopters with Twitter. I'm on Clubhouse now, not an early adopter. Well, I guess you could call me an early adopter. I got on in January. It started back last August. So I have a comfort level with using social media, but there are some social media platforms that are kind of fairly new to me. And so this is a learning curve for me. Clubhouse, for those of you who are on Clubhouse, it gives you opportunity to link back to Twitter, which check mark for Leanne, and also to link back to Instagram. I wasn't really great at Instagram. So now my learning curve is mastering the Instagram platform, which is a huge, huge project for me. So how you want to amplify your brand, and when you decide what platforms you want to be on, mastering that platform is going to be key in 2021 because social media is not going away anytime soon. Like I said, there just seems to be adding platforms. So it's a great right now. If you're in B2B like I am, LinkedIn is going to be the platform that you want to look a little bit closer at. LinkedIn has really exploded over the past year, again, because of that employment surge and people looking for jobs. And now there's a hiring surge again, so there's a ton of recruiters capitalizing on LinkedIn to find talent to fill the gaps that may have been left when this all happens. So do you see what's happening? It's just this perfect storm of people coming to LinkedIn to be seen and to see people. So this is the year for LinkedIn if you're in B2B, my friends. And if you've already mastered LinkedIn, there's these other platforms like Clubhouse, like Instagram, like Facebook that you might want to look into. So that brings us to number 6. This is probably the most abstract, I suppose, of the considerations and everything that's happened over the past year. The big one of the most abstract considerations is to show empathy for one and for all. So 2020 saw the rise of Black Lives Matter. Now here in 2021, we see the rise of Stop Asian Hate. Even before 2020, we were all on a learning curve of how to be more inclusive of people with different genders and different sexual orientations, and showing empathy for everyone, regardless of what they look like, what flag they carry, who they're married to, who they're not married to, is so critically important when developing your personal brand for a number of reasons. Number one, love rules all, right? Number one, love is what's going to bring you success and happiness. It's not going to be hate. So that's the easy one. But number two, with the awareness of the need for compassion and empathy for one and for all, was the introduction of cancel culture. And you've probably heard that term. And what cancel culture is basically canceling out someone who exhibits hate in some way, shape, or form. So it's an interesting dialogue, the dialogue of authenticity versus cancel culture. But my hope is that when our authentic personal brands is a brand of love and compassion. And so this one might be very easy for you. Maybe you had tons of love and tons of compassion before 2020. I know this one's relatively easy for me, but I have a lot to learn. And so that's what falls under this consideration for me, is I have a lot to learn about some of these issues and how I can be more compassionate and loving towards all people into 2021. So that's why I wanted to include that consideration as well. And number 7, which falls very much in line with number 6, is just to keep your brand respectful. Number 7, in keeping your brand respectful, is more again about the amplification of your brand. It's so critically important that the content that you're putting out there does not harm, hurt in any way, shape, or form, and that you are respecting of all individuals in the content you put out there. Again, this one might be easier said, or might be easier for some people than others, but so critically important as we all work towards being a more loving and compassionate society in 2021. It's been a difficult year for everyone. Difficult year for those who have lost family members due to COVID-19 or otherwise, and weren't able to celebrate their lives through the funerals and the celebrations of life in person. It's been a difficult year for my extroverted friends who have really struggled to get together with other people. And I think about some of my single friends and how their situation was so different from mine, because I had a family and a dog and a bubble of other married couples that I could lean on. So being respectful to every person you come across, you have no idea what they're going through on a daily basis. That is definitely a key consideration in 2021. So I would love for you to drop in the comments any questions you have, or anything you would like to ask about branding considerations in 2021. These, of course, may change again in 2022, and I'm hoping that it does. The one thing with our personal brands is it's always a journey. Personal brand is not a destination. It is definitely a journey. And there are some great sights to see along the way. It's so exciting when you start to be intentional around your personal brand. So those are my 7 ways to be intentional about your brand in 2021. Again, if you have questions or you'd like to even drop in the comments which consideration is most important for you in 2021, would love to hear that. Thank you so much for joining me and joining me for a cup of tea today on Tuesday Tea. Next week, I'm so lucky. I am honored and privileged to be sitting down with my good friend, Heather Reed. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome, how it's cropped up for us over this past year, and some strategies on how you can help endure. You can help battle imposter syndrome when it shows up in your life. Thank you again for joining me. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday, same time, same place. Bye for now.